How's it going, you guys? So, as most of y'all know who have been following me for quite some time, I have been studying deeply nutrition and disease physiology, human physiology, and the relationship between dietary patterns and pathology for the past 4 years now. Is it going on 5? Yeah. Since 2014. I was vegan for an entire year, and it caused me extreme disease, and switching to an autoimmune paleo diet solved all of my problems that veganism caused, and all of a sudden feel like I have godlike health, energy, and vitality, and everyone wants to know what my secret is. And I've been searching for this so-called proof that red meat causes heart disease specifically for quite some time. That is the number one thing I want to find, okay? Like, as far as animal products and disease, right? Like, I've just been focusing on red meat and its direct link to heart disease, because that should be simple. Or at least cholesterol and dietary cholesterol, serum cholesterol, and its so-called causation link with heart disease, okay? I've been looking for whatever strong evidence I can find that dietary cholesterol directly increases heart disease, okay? Incidence of heart disease. All I can find is dietary cholesterol increases your blood cholesterol, okay, your serum cholesterol. And people just assume that high blood cholesterol, high serum cholesterol equals heart disease. And that's the problem, is we don't have any studies that show that high LDL is actually a causation factor in heart disease, okay? That it's linked to incidence of heart disease. What we have is people like Vegan Gains, who references studies done on people taking statin drugs to show a correlation between low LDL and no incidence of arteriosclerosis. The problem with that is, number one, in that study, there's only 2 people in that low LDL group, and number 2, it's people taking statin drugs, and number 3, they completely exclude people with cholesterol levels over 160. The reason why is because you'll find that after 160, there's people that have no pathology in their arteries, no scarring in their arteries. That's why they exclude that data. Not to mention, the entire study is clearly done to support statin drug companies. And they fund those studies, but they do it in a way to where they don't have to put it down in the footnotes in the bottom in conflicts of interest. Anyway, I'm constantly asking vegans to link me some studies that prove without a shadow of a doubt that red meat causes heart disease, or that high serum LDL has a causation link to heart disease, incidence of heart disease, or scarring of the arteries. No one can show me that. No one has. Whenever, especially in YouTube comments, it irritates me so much, because you see all these dumbasses saying, oh, like, logic and reasoning destroys carnage nonsense every time. Then you ask them, show me some fucking proof. And every single time when I ask these vegans, just link me some proof, just please, anything, it's always like, oh, you can Google search it. Oh, you're biased, and no matter what I do, no matter what study I send you, you're not going to believe it because you don't want to believe it. If you really wanted to find it, you would have found it by now, blah, blah, blah. And it's very clear that 95% of people, all these people watching these vegan gurus, and really anyone on YouTube, they just assume that whatever the person is saying is true. And when they see them reference research up on the screen, they just assume that research is valid. Most people don't actually read the research, or if they do, they just read the abstract or they read the conclusion. They don't read the full text. And that's a problem, okay? And again, these vegans constantly say there's conclusive, it's been drawn conclusively that red meat causes heart disease. We have peer-reviewed population data on large populations clearly showing a direct link between heart disease and animal products, blah blah blah. It's conclusive. It's been proven time and time again, blah blah blah. Okay, correlation does not equal causation. Population studies by design cannot prove causation. They can only draw correlations. And the larger the population, the even weaker the conclusion that can be drawn. And here's the biggest problem with all these studies, okay? These food questionnaires and observational trials and these population studies especially, whether it's the Seventh-day Adventists, the China study, any of these things. We need studies that specify what these so-called meat eaters are eating their red meat with, okay? The problem is that almost like all of the red meat eaters in average society, okay, they're eating red meat with French fries, deep fried potatoes, and sodas on buns. This is what every average American eats for lunch. For breakfast, they eat cappuccino. They drink Starbucks coffee with several pumps of syrup, heavy cream and whipped cream on the top, with donuts on the side. For dinner, some people might eat some ground beef in a meat sauce on top of refined pasta, spaghetti, with cheese sprinkled on top. The saturated fat these people are eating is coming from dairy. Ice cream, pizza, maybe some cheese, maybe some butter and some cream. Maybe some whipped cream and some heavy cream with 12 pumps of sugar syrup in their coffee. Okay? It's unrealistic to just assume that these population studies control for these things, because they don't. And if they did, I guarantee you, a maximum of 20% of these meat eaters eat red meat in the form of ribeyes with a side of vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts and salad and green tea on the side. So, and then some people say, well, you know, that has plenty of antioxidants and polyphenols to counteract the effects of the red meat. How about they just don't eat processed junk that has been directly shown to cause heart disease, that we know for sure causes obesity, it drives diabetes. Like, the fact is, no matter what diet you follow, when you remove this junk from your diet, the refined carbs, the sugar, the refined grains, and when you add, especially when you add high quality protein, your hunger hormones become regulated, your insulin levels become more balanced, and diabetes usually can be reversed or at least significantly reduced just by removing the junk. So my point here is that these studies don't take this into consideration. Another thing is the healthy user bias. Look that up if you don't know what that is. Okay? The healthy user bias. The fact is, most people in average American society who eat red meat, they usually also eat a shit ton of other unhealthy junk food, which these studies don't control for. Please look at these studies and research them before you think that, you just assume that it's credible. The people eating red meat usually don't care about their health because average Americans believe that red meat is bad for them. So they'd probably eat white meat, chicken instead, or go plant-based. So the healthy user bias plays a role. So the fact is, most people just assume that this research is sound, and most people haven't actually read it, and if they do, they'll realize that vegan studies are based on correlation through large population studies that does not control for the processed junk people usually eat on the side of red meat. And until you can send me a study that links red meat in isolation that controls for this junk food crap, proving that it causes heart disease, until you can link me that, it's ridiculous. So leave your questions and comments down below, and I'll talk to you in the next video.